Welcome back to the channel. This week's video is all about social media sharing with Hugo, looking at Facebook, Pinterest, Twitter and LinkedIn, and it's all about getting your site viewers to share your content with these social media platforms. For this video you have to have the latest version of Hugo and Visual Studio Code installed and set up. If you need any help with that, I've left a link to my Hugo installation video. On completing this video, you'll be able to share pages or posts with Twitter, Facebook, LinkedIn and Pinterest. Before we start, a quick message from this video sponsor. As a Skillshare teacher, I've partnered up with them to offer you a free 1-month trial using my links below. I personally produce full-length Hugo courses on Skillshare, and there are many other great teachers on Skillshare ready to help you level up your skills for your next big project. Click on the links below to explore my courses and get a 1-month free trial. You can cancel at any time. You'll also be supporting this channel. I've left a link in the description below for all the files you need to get started with this tutorial. Once you open up the link, there is a green button and you can download a zip folder of all the files. Otherwise, if you're a more experienced Git user, you can clone it with a Git CLI or open it up with GitHub Desktop. Once you've got all those files open up in Visual Studio Code, the whole folder, you can then open up a new terminal and run Hugo server and then control click on the link. And you can see the site we're working with. We're going to have a go at placing some social shares below these call to action buttons. Just as an example, you could put these links on any page. The code that we're going to use, it will be compatible with any page on your site. Before we get into the actual social media plugins, let's have a go at setting up some containers to put the buttons in. So what we'll do, we'll go into layouts and index.html and we'll look for the buttons, and below that div we'll do a div.d-flex for display effects .flex-row, and that will enable us to put the buttons side by side easily. I've already got Bootstrap imported into this project, the CSS library, so that's why I'm using Bootstrap utility classes. Then we'll do div.margin-1 m-1 times 4 and tab, and that's where we're going to place our buttons. I've left a link to all 4 of these different social media sharing buttons. The first one's Twitter, and it's as simple as copying that code and then we'll paste it into the first div. And to help things run a bit faster so the page loads quickly, what we'll do is we'll grab that script and we'll go down to the bottom of the page and we'll put a comment in. Social sharing scripts, make sure you make that a comment with Control-K-C, and we'll paste that in, and then we'll save it and we'll check if it's working. So our tweet button is working. Let's move on to the next one. Now Facebook one is slightly more complicated. You can use a generator, but I prefer to go down to this example. What we'll do is we'll grab the script, we'll place that script at the bottom of the page, and then we'll grab the code. We'll paste that into the next div. If we bring all the properties onto new lines, you'll notice you have to put a URL in for the actual page that you're sharing. Now the way we can do that with Hugo, if we put in some double curly braces and do .permalink with a capital P, Hugo will generate that for us. Let's save that and let's have a look. Now we'll work on the alignment in a minute once we get all 4 buttons in. It's actually not going to work out of the box because we're currently running the localhost URL, but in the end I'll show you how to export your site and run it in the server and test it from there. But if we right click and inspect and have a look carefully, you'll see we've got our localhost URL coming in, and that will be replaced with the actual URL of your site when you export it, and I'll show you that at the end when we've got everything set up. The next one is LinkedIn. So we'll copy both lines and we'll paste them in and we'll tab it to clean it up. And as before, we'll grab that script just to help the page load faster. And we'll pop that script at the bottom of the page. We'll save it and test it out. And the LinkedIn button is coming up. The last one is Pinterest. So we're going to choose any image type. You can go through and you can choose different ones, but for what we're doing, any image will work alongside the rest of them. We've got our script. which we'll paste in at the bottom of the page, and then we'll grab our button code, tap that across, then we'll save it and we'll check it in the browser, and they're all looking great except for the Twitter. So we'll go ahead and we'll fix up the tweet button so that the vertical line is forced to the bottom of its container. If you have a look carefully, you'll notice, if you scroll, we've got an iframe which is getting in the way. You notice we've got position static and we want to align to the bottom of the container. You'll notice we've got an iframe here, and the class, there's quite a few classes. The first one is Twitter share button, so we'll grab that, and then we'll add some CSS to vertically align that button with the bottom of its container so it lines up with the other buttons in case you're using more than one social media sharing button on your page or your posts. So at the top of the page, we'll add a style, put a dot in, and we'll paste that in. We'll do vertical align, bottom, and then we'll use the important flag to force it. Save that, and now I've got all of our buttons lining up. Last thing we need to do is need to set our base URL, and then we need to export our site, and we need to test that the Facebook button is actually working with the URL. So what we'll do, we'll go into config.yaml. I've got mine set up to example.com. Make sure you have a / at the end of the base URL, and that's going to be the URL of your site when you've uploaded it to an FTP server. Then what we do is open a new terminal, we'll kill the previous one, and we'll run just the command Hugo. And it only took 40 milliseconds. Hugo is extremely fast. It has output the site into the public folder. Make sure that folder is empty before you do this, otherwise you might have some stale files in there. For this next part of the tutorial, you'll need a HTTP server installed and running. I'm using XAMPP. It supports the full stack. It's a free package and it's available on Windows, Linux, Mac. I think it's one of the easy ones to use. Once you've got XAMPP installed and running, you will have to start the Apache server. Make sure you're running XAMPP with administrative rights. You can then hit the Explorer button and it'll open up the folder where you've got XAMPP installed. If you go to www, that's where your web root is, and we can paste our site into here. So from in Visual Studio Code, you can right click on the public folder and reveal in File Explorer, and then you can open up public, Control or Command A for select all, Control or Command C to copy, and then paste them into your web root folder. By default, XAMPP will be running on port 80, so all you've got to type in is localhost, because port 80 is the default port for HTTP. Let's then click on Facebook, and we'll check it comes up with example.com. So here we have it, it is pulling example.com, which means the permalink of this site is being injected correctly. If we right click and inspect, you'll see that example.com is being configured for the Facebook share plugin. The rest of these plugins don't require you to explicitly set the URL, they're much easier to use. So that's it for this week's video. If you've got any questions or comments, please leave them below in the description section. Remember to subscribe to the channel, hit the thumbs up button, and hit that bell notification so you get notified of new videos which I release on static web design weekly. Bye for now.